Welcome to Bank on Her. I'm Mackenzie Conklin, and I teach you how to make confidence a strength in and out of your business so you can build self-made wealth and unrealistic success on your terms. I've gone from defeatingly low self-worth to a multiple six-figure entrepreneur by learning how to bank on myself, and I believe you can do it too. Listen to find out how. Hey everyone, welcome back to Bank on Her. I haven't been super regular with these episodes, but we're trying to. We're doing our best over here. So hopefully you are still listening. I know we've gotten so much good feedback from all of you of how much you love it, how addicting this show is for you guys, and that you just want me to come out with more episodes. So I am doing my best. I don't talk about this a lot, but I have run my entire business without a team so far. So my mom is very, very sweet and will help me with Zoom links and a couple of random admin tasks here and there. And my dad actually is the one who edits my podcast. So I have that help. But in terms of having an assistant or a team or anything of the sort, that's just never been the case for me. I had a virtual assistant once, and it quickly did not work out within the first week. And so I've been on my own ever since. And so my business at this point is just getting too big. And your girl could use some help. So I'm hopefully making a hire this week and will be able to focus way more on my clients. I mean, I already do everything I can to pour into them, but even more they will be poured into now. And then I can also focus way more on creating content for you guys, creating more podcasts. So I am just so excited for all of that. In today's episode, though, I want to talk about a big milestone that I've been really quiet about actually in the past couple weeks. But I really want to share, but more importantly, I want to share some of the lessons I've learned from this year and how you can apply it to yourself and your business. And I think they're very important, and they're very important at every level, whether you're working towards your first client or, you know what, honestly though, this whole podcast episode, every single lesson, it doesn't matter if you have a business or not, this can be applied to anything. And so honestly, that's what I love so much about what I do, is that so much of what I teach can be applied if you don't have a business, if you are in your first year of business, if you are working towards your first $500,000, $1 million business. They work at every level. And so I just love it. But I really want to get into it. And I'll paint a little bit of a picture here for you too of why these lessons came through for me. But let's just dive right in. So we're really going to paint the picture, go all the way back here for you. So in November 2020, I had just announced maybe a couple weeks earlier that my business was starting and that you could work with me in private coaching as, work with me for confidence. And I didn't yet at that point at November 2020 have paid clients. I think I had started my business like the first week of November, if not the last week of October in 2020. Anyway, November 2021, we're just going to look at all the Novembers. It was actually the first month in November 2021 that I had no sales since signing my first client in December of 2020. And I think at that point in time, most of that year I was averaging $25,000 sales months. And I was just so proud of myself in November for not signing clients, not because, I didn't want to make the money, but because I was so proud of how I handled that situation. And I grew more that month because of no sales than my bigger sales months. And it was just so exciting for me to, have the first month where I didn't make any additional sales and feel so safe in that. And so I was really proud of that. And fast forward to 2022, and I'll be real with you guys. I had a rough year. So I would say that I'm someone who has high functioning depression and anxiety, and I've made terms with that this year, and I'm going to talk a lot about it. But 2022 has been a rougher year for me. I felt like I had a lot of my trauma triggered, and what that caused was my nervous system to shut down for quite large chunks at a time. And my anxiety was so high. My depression was really flaring up. It made it very hard for me to accomplish things. And I talk a lot about this with my clients, but it just felt like a hard year. And I think that was the case for a lot of people. But it definitely felt like more of an uphill battle in 2020 than the first year in my business. And so it was also, I'll say, my first year. So I had quit my job in August 2021. And so it was the first year of being a full-time entrepreneur, right? In a growing business at that. And so I think just having so many things go on in my personal life with depression and anxiety and trauma paired with my business, the first year in business, it was just a lot. And, that happens to people. But in November of 2022, so this last month, I actually haven't said this anywhere publicly. I've only said it to my friends and sat with it a lot myself. But I really turned it around. Not that it needed to be turned around, but I started to feel better. And so of November 2022, can you tell I'm avoiding saying this? I had a little over a $73,000 sales month. And that actually happened in about 3 weeks. So 3 weeks, and I created $73,000, which is just so mind-blowing to me. And I had talked about this on my stories a little bit, but I grew up very well off. I never had to worry about money, and I'm very privileged in that way. But I did grow up with, I would probably say, a daughter of immigrants mentality, in that just little things like it's so funny to say out loud, and please DM me and talk to me about this if your family did this too. But my grandparents had immigrated from Italy, and my mom grew up with immigrant parents. And so it was just little things that I grew up with. Like, I remember my mom and my grandma would save tinfoil. After we used tinfoil, they would wash it and save it. And so it was like, I grew up with little things like that. And so, and I always looked up to my grandparents so much for the life that they had created for their children and for their grandchildren. And so $73,000, it just swept me away, because I know for a fact that that was more than my grandparents earned in a whole year for their family of 6. And so to grow up saving tinfoil, even if it wasn't necessary, to making that much money is just really special to me. And I'm only 26, and it just feels so big. And so it's been a real identity up level, is what I will say. And I will say this year too is it's the first year. I'm like, do they even care? It's okay. It's the first year without my grandparents. And so a lot of what I've created this year has been more focused on, what do I want to create and what would make my grandparents proud and all of this. And so I've just really sat on the $73,000 month by myself, which is okay. But I really want to share the lessons that I think took me from really struggling this year and just feeling like I wasn't going to succeed, and I didn't know if I could make it, to something this big. And I actually believe it will be about $250,000 business, or $250,000 year for me in sales. And to go from thinking that your depression and your anxiety and your mental health struggles and your trauma weren't going to make it, so that wasn't possible, and even just making enough to live in San Francisco was in question, to creating $250,000 is really big. And I just want to share the shifts that I feel like that were really important to me. And then again, I think can be applicable whether you don't have a business and you're listening, because I know we have just some beautiful high achieving women who do listen, or you are an entrepreneur and want to apply it to wherever you are in business. And so there are 7 or 8, I don't remember, 7 or 8 lessons that I want to take you through and that I think are just so important to be shared. So let's dive right in. So lesson number 1, I'm totally going to mess up the numbers as I go, is that I learned that my business and I are far stronger and more capable than I've ever given them credit for. So me and my business are far stronger. And I know that's the case for everyone listening too, even if it's just you and your career, you and your business, whatever it is. And the thing that really came through for me is that you can fail and be depressed, live with high anxiety, and still make more money than your identity can keep up with. So every part of me was in a little bit of shock when I realized that I had surpassed $225,000 in sales this year. And as I've talked a little bit about and alluded to, this was the year that my trauma kept me up at night. I was constantly hypervigilant. My nervous system was immobilized for weeks at a time. And my income, not that income is what is, it's not what's important here, but I want to just say it, is that my income each month was totally reflected by the state of my nervous system and mental health. So it was just so disheartening to see that as my depression, anxiety, and nervous system kind of flared up, I just watched the correlation between that and my income. And I watched both plummet for a while there. And yet, despite all of that, I learned my business and I are just so much stronger than I give them credit for. And I really had to learn that it doesn't have to be anxiety or accomplishing things. It doesn't have to be confidence or depression. It's not that binary. It's not that black and white. And I didn't realize that going into this year. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a later one, but I just had thought for a really long time that if I was feeling so down, if my nervous system was so immobilized, I wouldn't be able to succeed at the same levels that I did the year before. And I've actually surpassed that. And something that really helped me kind of get through it is that I can have depression, and I'm going to talk more about this. I can have depression and still do more than I think possible. And the other thing that really helped me was realizing, I got some really good coaching on this, that it's just my job to run this business. And there's so much, I would say, like, animosity towards corporate, and I totally understand why. But I I used to be depressed in corporate. I used to have trauma in corporate, and I still was a top performer. And it's just something about being depressed in corporate where you're like, well, got to do my job anyway. People expect things of me. Versus when you work for yourself, it's just kind of a different game, and it's harder to sometimes manage. And this also was the year that I really have come to terms with the fact that I probably have ADHD. And so I just had to learn that it's my job. It's my job to write the content. It's my job to market. It's my job to do the hard things, even when no part of me wants to. And that might not feel good for some people, but for whatever reason, that worked for me. That worked for me. And I was like, it's just my job. I just have to sell. I just have to do these things anyway, like I used to. And that's not, let me be very clear. That's not from a place of let me neglect my needs, let me bulldoze my mental health. It's not from that state. It's more of that the belief of like, I've done both before and I can keep doing both. And that actually helped me feel more safe. And so I want everyone listening to know that you can fail, be depressed, live with high anxiety, and still do so much more than you think, because you are stronger, and your business or career are so much stronger than you give them credit for. So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two is, going off of that, identity work isn't always what we've been taught. So I had the perception long before starting my business that to get more of what you want in life, you have to raise your identity, right? And so I had the perception that, we work to raise our identity and what we think we're capable of and worthy of, and then the results will follow. And not that that's untrue, but I've personally seen how a lot of people get disheartened by this process when the results don't follow, right? Or when they feel like they've raised their identity, but the results are taking a long time, or it plummets, all of that. And so that's not necessarily not how identity work is, but it's just not the way it worked out for me this year. And so what really ended up changing for me the trajectory of my business this year, not that, I also want to say, it never was going poorly. It was never going poorly. I had earned six figures this year, I think within the first 4 months of this year. And so it's not like anything was going wrong. It was just, I was not going at the pace that I thought, but I still think this is important for everyone. So it's just not the way it worked this year. So I think it was like May through September is when my business, I felt like, really was just not it was not doing what I wanted it to do. But no, what I really mean there is I was just not seeing the results that I had been accustomed to because I was so in the depths of my mental health struggles that it was reflected, right? And so anyway, so let's go back to 2. So the identity work just didn't look like I thought it was going to this year. And so it looked so much more like putting my head down, sloshing through the coaching myself incredibly. I coach myself incredibly hard, by the way, pouring into myself and my business because I believed I could keep going. And so I want to be very clear. I was not putting my head down, coaching myself, believing in myself for the results. There was no focus on results at a certain point in time once I actually started switching the flip from September on. I put my head down and sloshed through and just really worked hard because I believed in myself, period. I had to get back to my belief. And so when you don't focus on the results, of course, that's when the results follow. And they came on such a scale that it forced my identity to catch up. Rather than me trying to push my identity uphill, I just kept my head down and worked. And the results just poured in. So that $73,000 this month just poured in, and it forced my identity to have to catch up. And I'm really gonna with the following points, I'm gonna talk more about kind of what helped me put my head down and really just get to work. And that doesn't even, I did work hard. I worked incredibly hard this year, but I also just want to say it was more of the lack of focus on results and more of just, I believe I can do this, period. That really helped me get through. And so it was just such a difference of identity work than what we're usually taught. That's all. And I think that was really important for me to understand that process differently. Okay, 3. Your support system will make or break your results. I quickly realized in 2021 that I had connections, not friendships. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it was just that the more money I had made in 2021, the more those connections faltered. And that's totally okay. Not everyone's going to come with you. Not everyone is going to support you. And I don't want this to sound bad, but it was like I think I was just triggering people with certain levels of my success, and that makes me so sad. But it just a lot of the friendships I thought I had turned out to be connections, and so that really changed this year. And so I really love this point. My calendar every week is filled with hours of calls with my new support system and the friends that I've made this year. And so I was able to find a group of women who will they will coach me when it's 9 p.m. on the West Coast, and I've given them 15 minutes notice. I have women who will call me 10 minutes. I just posted about this last week. 10 minutes after their webinar and just screaming in happiness, celebrating together from her webinar before she even told her husband. There are women that I talk to in my support system for my business who I talk to more than probably my boyfriend. And I talk to him a lot, who know the ins and outs of my family dynamics, my relationships, who really, and this is most importantly, celebrate me unconditionally. I think a huge reason I was able to succeed at the scale that I've been succeeding this year, despite struggling, is because I have them. And it can be really hard, especially in entrepreneurship, to find that circle, but keep searching for them if you don't have them yet. Keep finding them. And because that's been such an important part of my journey, I really prioritize with my own clients, giving them community and true community where they can rely on each other, support one another without fear of competition or what will other people think, and all the sorts. And I think finding those communities is so important to you growing as a person, as an entrepreneur, and just feeling safe. So that is number 3. Number 4 is I've learned to love more of myself this year, even the unsavory parts is what I would say. So this comes back to the depression, anxiety. And so when my depression and anxiety hit me like a ton of bricks this year, I really wanted them to go away. I felt like I had been doing so well. I'd been so happy. And it all really started when my trauma started getting triggered again in February. And I just kind of pushed through it at the beginning. And so going from being so happy to feeling like someone had like ripped me into a new universe was really tough. Again, I wanted them to go away, and I spent a lot of time wishing they weren't there, but I had to make peace with them. I had to make peace with my depression and anxiety. And something that was really big for me this year was that I had to realize that my depression and anxiety are a part of me. They will never go away, and I don't need them to. I had to learn that they actually only make me stronger. And something that I was grappling with for part of this year, probably May through August maybe, was that I started to wonder if my depression and anxiety made me less confident or less good at what I do. But I really had to sit with and understand, and I am fully, no one can possibly shame me on this because I am so in my belief on this now. My depression and anxiety actually just make me better at what I do. Just because someone's not feeling their best right now, right? Like I wasn't feeling my best, I am just as powerful of a vehicle for change in helping women around the globe become more confident. It just makes me understand them better. It just makes my skill of helping anyone even stronger. And I really had to learn that. And I had to learn that even on my worst days, the good will come again. And I spend so much of this year thanking God I had another day, even if it was painful, and telling myself that I would love myself through the hard days regardless. And I think it's so easy to, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. It's so easy to lose your belief when depression and anxiety come. It is so easy to feel naturally unsafe in your body and in your nervous system when they come through, and our belief tends to go with it, but it doesn't have to. And it took me a really long time to learn this, and it's a skill. It is a skill. So I think loving myself through that, learning to still believe in myself through the anxiety, through the depression, through the panic attacks, and all of the trauma that I was going through was so important to, yes, my business, yes, my income, yes, my growth, but really just my emotional wealth and my mental health. And I think that's one skill that I think is just so important for women across the globe, is to not change how they feel about themselves in the face of challenging results or circumstances. And I think that's something that I've really had to master even more this year. And so if you can master the skill of still believing in yourself and loving yourself, even the hard parts, through anything, it will take you so far. Okay, so we got through the first 4 lessons from this year. They took longer than I expected them to. So what I'm actually going to do is break up this podcast into 2 parts. So you got the first 4 this week. The next 4 lessons will come next week. And I just want you to sit with these 4 lessons that I've already shared. Where can you implement this into your own life? Where can you absorb and metabolize these lessons? Where can these lessons help you? And of course, as always, if you want help with these lessons from me, if you want my brain, my hands, my thoughts on your business every single day for the next 6 months, listen to this exciting announcement. Hey, I have really big news. I will be accepting only 3 private clients during the month of December. So if you are a high-achieving woman who wants to exist and earn more confidently, come apply to work with me. My private clients regularly become breadwinners, move abroad, double their income, become multiple 6-figure earners, buy the designer bags, chop off their hair, have it all, and just improve every area of their life through confidence. We'd love to have you be one of these 3 women who makes her life so much richer in the next few months. You can go ahead and head to my show notes to get the link to apply. And thank you for listening to Bank on Her.